This is not the first demo. So as Bill pointed out, we have 4 platform definitional centers around the world that are working to defining products uniquely for emerging markets. And we have a couple of them that are in production right now. System for iCafes is back there. I don't know if any of you ever been to an internet cafe in China. As Bill pointed out, it's not like the little ones you see here. You walk in, like 500 PCs, right?
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
The first thing that crosses your mind, is, I wonder where the fire exit is, right? Because there's 500 people. The second thing that crosses your mind is, how do they take care of all this stuff, right? There's a lot of PCs that take care of it, and lots of high school kids playing with them. And so there's a lot of stuff uniquely designed in for there. The other thing which, I think hopefully I'll turn this on, that's the on switch, is if you look at life in rural India. So rural India there are about 700 million people in rural India and about 600,000 villages. And so your average village is about 1,500 people. And India is a very interesting place. There's a tremendous amount of interaction with the government. If you are your average Intel employee who works in our office, which happens to be in Bangalore, you spend 3 entire days a year standing in line, filling out governmental forms out. You ask your average person, average Californian, how long you spend in line other than the post office and other than filling out your taxes with the government. It is about 15 minutes every 5 years, right? As long as you make your appointment with DMV before you go, right? If you are the head of a household in a rural village, you spend an average of 24 days a year out of your village, standing in line, governmental forms. And this is, birth, death, land grants, proving you've grown crops. This is like equivalent to EEOC type certificates in the U.S. 24 entire days. Now, clearly, if you didn't have to spend all those days out of your town, you could do whatever your livelihood is, which often is agriculture. Now, you can do that only if you can communicate with the main parts of the government. And to do that, it'd be great to have some sort of electronic system to do that. And it would be neat if it's a sustainable business. So we developed this thing called the Community PC, which I'll just click OK here, come back to this feature. This Community PC is targeted at this village. And what you just saw go by on the screen was a question which asked whether I want to pay up for my usage for the PC. But I let it go by so that we can go on with the description. If you're in this village, you would want to be able to have this communication with the government. And the only way you really could do it is electronically. If you could do it electronically, you wouldn't have to go into the town. Now, if you go to these villages around the world, and I've been to lots of them, no one in the village has enough money to buy a PC themselves. And probably the children will never have enough money either. However, the village as an economic collective would have enough purchasing power. Now, everybody's not going to go put, their 100 rupees in, or their 1,000 rupees in to buy one because maybe they don't all use it the same, they don't have it, etc. But if there was an economic model by which people would come and pay 10 rupees for a birth certificate, they might spend 100 rupees for a marriage certificate, maybe 200 for proof that you own the land. That itself would build up an economic model. And a kiosk owner could actually run a kiosk, and as opposed to people coming in and using it individually, they basically sit behind the person while they type for you. So the villagers never have to learn how to use a PC. In the US, it's much like going to mailboxes, etc., where you go there and you say, hi, I want this faxed. I want these copies made. Can I have that card? And can I get my passport photos taken? And the person behind the counter does all those things for you. Now, these are different services, but same kind of model. And if you can do that, you can save all the time traveling. You also, this person can educate your children for about $5 a month, you can have all the children in your family taught how to use a computer. And they can also be tutored to pass high school tests. You can have ID cards, pictures taken for your ID cards, and your ID cards made, you don't have to leave town. And you just keep going through all these different services. Now, you layer on top of that, you go, that's neat. Go to rural India. Rural India redefines hot. I mean, absolutely positively, just redefines the term hot. It's 45 degrees centigrade all the time. And when I was in many of these kiosks, you're in there and you say to them, can we go outside where it's cooler? Because obviously there's no air conditioning and there's no fans. The reason why there's no fans is because there's no power. Because the power is off at least 6 hours a day, always during the day for some unknown reason. On top of that, rural India also redefines dusting. And we have one of those little Roombas at home that goes around and cleans up after the dog, right? No way could it keep up in rural India. It just totally redefines dusting. So you layer all these things together, you have a real honest to goodness business problem, and you have a technology problem. Despite what most people tell you, 45 degrees centigrade, one of the laptops that we all use, it will not work. Also, despite what people tell you, you build up enough dust, your system will actually stop working. And obviously, if you don't have any power, eventually your PC will stop working. So we designed a system called the Community PC, sometimes known as the India Rural PC, designed to meet all of these features. First of all, for the infamous dust, we have, if I can get this out of here, we have the great little dust filter. And if it wasn't for the fact they wouldn't let us do it in here, we pour brick dust on here and shows that it keeps brick dust out of there. It's really, really, really fine. So it keeps it all out. And there's fans to pull the air through the filter so that you keep dust out of the system. The other thing is we purposely designed all of the elements of the motherboard. There's an Intel branded motherboard inside for heat. We asked a question about, have we ever designed processors just for emerging markets? Well, the answer is no so far, but we've taken stuff we've designed for other parts of the marketplace and applied it differently. Standard chassis are designed for about 32 degrees centigrade, ambient, which we would consider hot. This is designed for 45. How did we do it? We took actually mobile components, which are designed to go in those laptops, which are really small, and we put what I call big heat sinks on them, really big heat sinks on them, and we blew a lot of air across them. And so as a result, we took products that are designed elsewhere, we assembled them differently in the system, so it works at this different environment. So although we didn't design them originally for that, we utilized them differently. The other thing is we mentioned that the power is off at least 6 hours a day, and always during the business day. And so we designed in here a built-in uninterrupted power supply, which is built into the system. And you can use it with pretty much any car or truck battery. And so as a result, and you go in India, these things are just everywhere. And you also know that they're of great value because if you notice on trucks the batteries are always on the outside around here. In India, they have padlocks on them because people will steal them. But this has it built in, and this is a fairly inelegant demo, right? But you can unplug it, and it's still working. Honestly, and it will run this system with this monitor. It's an LCD monitor, uses a little less power. I'll run maybe 10 hours on this, I think, car battery. You put a truck battery in, obviously it lasts longer. But that's enough to run during the business day. The power tends to be on at night, it charges back up. We have a lot of other elements here which are involved in making this system work in the environment. First of all, in the very beginning, you saw the little certificate thing go by. This is a kiosk model. The person who runs it is a kiosk owner. They take out a loan because probably if you take all the cash in the village together, it's probably not the $400 to buy the system. Now, if you are a giver of a loan, and this kiosk is far away, you're going to go, how are you going to make sure you pay me, right? And the way you make sure you pay me, as Bill pointed out, we actually developed the system before the relationship with Microsoft on the pay-per-use, is there's a little certificate, a little card with a little number on it, and you go to your local bank. More likely, your service provider or your cousin or somebody who's going into the next town anyhow. You give them some money, they'll buy a card for you, bring it back, and it's good for a month or 2 months, however much you want to pay. And this is how the person who gives the loan is relatively certain that you're going to pay the loan, because I forgot to mention, if the certificate runs out, your PC stops working. Now, unlike cell phones, if you ever use prepaid cell phones, if your minutes run out in the middle of that call, I don't know if you've ever used one, that is that. You know, right in the middle of the conversation, then just cut out. This is a lot more graceful. It gives you warnings and all those kind of things. Save your work, please. Very graceful. But it certains that you pay for it. So we have all these features. We have some manageability features we get from other things. But again, it actually all started out not with us taking PCs trying to figure out how to sell them in India, but rather going to a lot of villages. Tony over there and a guy who runs our design center in Bangalore, Joydeep, and a bunch of other people went to a bunch of villages to actually go define this, and then we've gone to lots of villages afterwards to actually test it to make sure that it actually fulfills the needs. And as I've said several times, it's not very often the customers actually come up and thank me, but we were in this village called Mandia, which is near our office in Bangalore, like only a 4-hour right away, and the mayor came up to me and said, "Thank you for bringing this to our village, because this will actually help the people in our village have a better life," and that doesn't happen very often. So in any case, community PC obviously it's more than just India, and but again, any place hot, dusty, intermittent power, and the concept of a community together providing a service. Okay, so the community PC. The other one, which you've seen, which Paul Odolini has shown at WCIT World Congress Information Technology, something like that, is this little device whose nickname is Classmate PC. You've otherwise seen it called EduWise. It's the same thing, just a different code name. In this nice pink color. The previous color was blue. We'll see what the next color is. I'm hoping for my high school colors. And which are yellow and green, by the way. This is a very interesting device. This device actually started out with the fact, not for us going to schools and saying, what would you like to do with your PCs? But by going to schools and saying, you may not use the word PC or computer in your answer. What are the problems that you have in your school, and how can we help solve them? Talking to teachers, administrators, parents, students. And again, you may not use PC or computer in your answer. And the things that you find is, if you are, we all complain about class sizes being too big here in the US, which we should probably all continue to complain about. But they're still pretty small compared to many places in the world where there's 60 kids in a classroom, one teacher, or maybe even in some cases no teacher. The classes are all brought in by satellite or video. And there's no concept of personalized education. Tony and I think Tony, yeah, you and I, we were together in a school in Guanajuato in Mexico, and we asked a teacher who had about 60 kids in her classroom, and we said, if a child is ahead of the class, what do you do? She said, I congratulate them. And then we said, okay, if a child is behind in your class, what do you do? And she said, they fall further behind. And I said, why? She said, I just do not have enough time, I don't have enough material, I do not have enough tools in order to give them individualized attention. And then you ask the students what the problem is, and they say, well, if I'm ahead, I don't get further ahead. If I'm behind, I'm lost. And I hate to say it, the material is kind of boring. And I would like to learn some more. And I'd like to be able to study at home as well. I can't do any of those things. Yes, the principals, what the biggest problems are, and they talk about the fact of being able to provide attention to the kids as well as attention to the adults. And yes, the parents, and they go, you know, I have no idea how to help my children. I want my children to have a better life than I do, but what they're learning, a lot of them are illiterate, is more than what I have, etc. Okay, so we came up with this idea of Classmate PC, which is what's called an individualized learning tool as opposed to a personal learning tool. It's individualized because while in many places the students may take it home, in many places it may stay in the classroom, right? Depends a lot upon what the school district can afford, whether it's safe for the children to take it home, whether it's one child sharing them or three. The magic is 1-to-1 or 1-to-3. 1-to-1 is personalized. If you have one student together, they're learning. If you have two, you have an argument. And if you have three, you have teamwork. And if you have four, you have a mess. So, so 1 or 3, 1 of course is always better. And this is a concept of a learning device. Now, it's one of the things which we learned, which, as you know, hopefully this will be going, is that you need to have it be interesting, you need to have it be exciting, and you need for it to reinforce the teacher-student relationship. And so our concept here is to develop a device which reinforces all those things. Now, there's a couple things. Number one, if you're a student, you want to be able to learn how to do things. If you're a teacher, you want to be able to have the student do the activity that you're on. There was someone I was talking to a number of years ago who was developing a device for classes, and they said, well, this is a great device because kids in classes can collaborate and send messages to each other. And my first question is, okay, how do you turn that service off? And the guy looked at me and I said, you have no children in school. He said, you're right. I go, because the first thing kids will do is they'll send the answers to the test to each other, right? As a teacher, you want to be able to turn it off. The other thing is that you want them to be able to pay attention. But then you also want them to be able to do individualized learning. So we designed this solution in order to be able to do all those things. And hopefully, yep, there we go. This demo will run. Now, somebody can be the student. Who would like to be the student? Student. Okay, you all over here. You're the student. Okay. So over there you can see, hopefully see, the screen that I have. Did it show up over there? Say Mexico over there? Hopefully I'm doing this. This is demo on the fly.
I run out for a bit.
You run out for a bit. Okay. Hang on a second. How about that?
You got it.
There we go. There. Okay, so if you were our chief ethnographer wants to look at it. If you were a student, every student there, sorry, you would then be following along in my presentation. You would not be doing anything else. You would be following along in the presentation I have. I promise not to do anything else. And so I can go along and show what I'm doing, and you continue map of the world, etc., etc., and you can basically go along and see what's doing, right? It actually works. Now the other thing is that if you're the student over there, I can actually go look at what you're doing and help you or keep track of what you're doing there. So we'll just kind of get rid of that full screen, right? And basically I can go through and either help you doing what you're doing or change what you're doing, etc. Now the other one, which is my favorite, is, so why don't you play around and see if you like that device. This is my favorite one. You know what I'm going to do, right?
No.
So if I want you to pay attention, what's it say?
Please pay attention to me.
Please pay attention. You called me a professor, isn't that great? Right? And so this is just the beginning of the soft that we're doing, but again, it's all about the relationship between the student and the teacher, the students to each other, etc. And the concept of it is, you know, it's not just a device, a PC per se. It's very rugged. These are prototypes. I don't suggest you drop them, but it's very backpackable. It's very light, long battery life. It actually doesn't have a hard drive in it because I don't know if any of you actually had your PC break, but the number one thing that breaks is the hard drive. It runs in flash instead of a hard drive, which gives much more durability. And it actually turns out to be much better battery life as well because hard drives end up actually using a lot of battery.
How many students you can concurrently use this?
How many students can you do? You could technically do more than you would ever want to put in a classroom. You can do more than would ever exist in a classroom. In other words, you could have 60 kids in a classroom. You can control and operate more children than you'd want to put in a classroom. And you would do this classroom by classroom.
And it is in a wireless networking environment.
That's right. It's wired or wireless. And you would normally have access to the internet. Actually, Intel's firewall keeps us from doing it here. You would have access to the internet. Hang on, there you go. And access to the internet. You can do interactive games. You can do interactive learning. And if it's school policy, you can also take these home and learn at home. One of the other major features that we're designing into is the concept of the teacher and parent interface. How many of you have kids? Right? How many of you search through the backpack looking for the note home from the teacher? Right? Actually, you don't know that those notes. You don't know those notes don't come. This is the concept of the fact that the communication between the school and the parents can be on here if the kids take it home, and it can be secure and password protected. And the kids are not going to say, "Oh, I didn't bring it home," right? And it's easy to find because it's pink, right?
So who's going to support all of that?
Right. So who's going to support it? So the business model is we actually designed this. Our team in Shanghai designed it. It's being built by an ODM in Taiwan, Shanghai. Be sold through local OEMs to the schools, and the support would either be the local OEM who supports the school and the school IT staff. However, there's a lot of stuff designed into here which makes it much simpler to support. This is a focused, individualized education device. You can't add programs. Students can't. Obviously, the school and the local OEM can. It's a very focused education device, and one of the main things that always drives support is the addition of hardware, the addition of software, the things that generally drive additional support. So this is absolutely a focused education device. As a result, the support is less. But on top of that, it would be supported by the normal school IT infrastructure, which would, first blush is the teacher, then it's the school IT person, and then it's the OEM who supports the school. But one of our main goals is design a bunch of manageability in so that there's a minimal amount of support required. Last but not least, what we're designing into the system is asset control. And we're working exactly how to figure it out. But for example, if the system is not in the school for a week, then it stops working. A couple things for this. Number one, reduces the probability of the kids stealing it. And number two, at the end of the day, it also reduces the probability of thieves mugging kids to steal it because they know it'll stop working.
Yeah, but it stops working, they just throw it in the trash.
They could, but it's less value to steal. Well, a kid wouldn't because they come back to school and wouldn't have it. But so that's an added feature. I think there are probably a lot of schools who will say it stays on school property. But again, that's the school's decision. We just want to put everything in so that the schools can make that decision.
And what's the price on this as well as the community PC?
So the price for this we've announced is less than $400.
This one?
This one. All told. We have not come up with the final price. My goal will be much less than $400. Community PC is, John, what's our latest price? We were just doing price at lunch today.
We are, within the next 3 weeks, we will be at or around low 400s, I'd say 450 or less.
And
this is including all, this is in India, street price, including taxes.
Right, so this is $450, which for a PC you may consider It's not incredibly cheap, but for your 450 you get uninterrupted power supply, you get the high temperature. In India it's landed and taxes, etc.
So with monitor or?
With monitor. Not this monitor.
Right.
But you
And
cannot.
how big is the flash drive on this thing?
How big is the flash drive in this thing?
Are the specs online?
For community PC is a selling product. So community PC, whatever you want, we can get you because it's actually an ongoing selling product. Okay. Those specs are not online yet. We're actually honing in on the flash drive size, the gig.
So what's the decision that this must have a hard drive, and but it's okay for this one to have just a flash drive?
Right. So first of all, one of the main reasons we put flash in there is actually for durability, because it moves around. If it wasn't for the fact that it moves around and it's not plugged in all the time, hard drive would be the answer. But as we all know, hard drives are the thing that break the most. These are kids. They're walking around. And so the main reason we drove for the flash drive was not necessarily cost, but again, focused, individualized education device. And our prime design criteria was durability. I can get
In other words, I guess where I'm going with this is that Intel has a slightly different philosophical viewpoint on all this stuff. I mean, some of your competitors are talking about having cheaper devices that frequently don't have a hard drive, and Intel says no, hard drive is very important. And yet you've got a model here that doesn't have a hard drive, and so I'm trying to figure out when is it that Intel says, no, it's got to be standard PC must have a hard drive. When does Intel say no, hard drive isn't quite as important?
Yeah. So for most people, for most times, a general purpose device does things. I've been doing this for a long, long time. And usually what happens is for someone at home or a business, you say, I just want this cheap thing. And then by the time you add on all the things you want it to do, it's a regular full-function PC. And so that's why we did that, right? The reason why the affordable PC is the way it is, it's a full-function PC. Bill was just talking about it. It does everything. And that's because in Latin America, which is one of the places this is defined, by the time everybody says what they want, it's a full-function PC. So you want a full-function PC, you need a hard drive. The reason why this one has flash is, again, it is not a full-function PC. It's not meant to do everything. People have said to me, well, it doesn't do something, and my answer is, that's okay. Because it's not meant to be a PC for everybody. It's meant to be a very focused education device for emerging markets.
Can I add something to that specifically for this question here? The community PC is meant to go in an information kiosk that offers a variety of services to the village, and those services need to evolve and grow with the kiosk operator's business. And so the PC needs to be as general as it can be. Right? In this case, it's meant to support a classroom with specific applications for classroom activity.
The content that makes the talk useful. I think this is the kind of capability that we bring to the market versus just here's a cheap device. You can go sell a cheap device anytime you want, but is it useful? So people say, how come you don't make a $100 PC? Well, we don't make you a $100 PC, but how useful is it? So when people get fixated on the price versus is it useful, you're asking and answering the wrong question. So we believe that what we bring to the market is much more holistic, looking at, as we said in the World Ahead framework, transforming the society in terms of education, bettering the economy, both connectivity, accessibility. That's what it's about. Good. I think we've done the demonstration and the presentation part, so any questions you'd like to ask? Not just Willie and I, but we also have many of us now.
Good. I would think that the powers
Natural ability that this has as far as battery life. You notice that's a little thicker than a normal laptop, right? For the cooling. So some of the same features we're building in for those kind of devices. But schools do have the same issue with power. A lot of them actually have generators.
when we look at some of the current laptops that are provided to schools, one of the problems
in developing world to see whether it actually could benefit. And at that point, it would be theoretical. We'll run trials. As far as running Windows, it will run a version of Windows, which we'll have specially done, and you won't be able to install applications.
Well, what's it running now? It looked like it was
It runs Windows XP Professional.
Okay, so what we're seeing is a prototype. It's not.
Yeah, oh, that's
okay.
good.
Yeah, okay. So and what does it take? I mean, do you got to get Redmond to go ahead and sign off on that? And how confident are you that that's going to be easily done?
It's like a three-part question.
Wait, I got two more.
You got two more. I'm confident we'll get it.
Yeah.
What about people using different languages? I mean, are people learning in English in India? And is that keyboard appropriate? What about touch screens or something?
Okay, so first of all, the demos are running in Spanish and Portuguese, so luckily
Okay.
Laura helped me out. The demos are actually in Portuguese,
I
Spanish.
can see that. Okay.
Well, except other than talk to the professor, which pops up in English. So multiple languages, absolutely. And the keyboard's actually replaceable, and it's designed to be replaceable for the language thing, and also probably on the support question, probably on a yearly basis, they'll probably get new keyboards and probably the new outside, just for student wear and tear. So yeah, multiple languages and multiple language keyboards. It's easily replaceable.
The keyboard on the pink thing there?
On pink thing, yeah. And then the pink, and then be able to put a new pink thing on, maybe make it my favorite, green and yellow. So yeah, we are addressing all those things. Also, kids in India learn English, by the way. But that's not even new here nor there.
On the research side, why not work with Intel R&D?
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.